The ballroom fell silent as Alexander, Chen's hands trembled at the edge of the red veil. Behind him, 300 guests held their breath. Before him stood a bride he'd never seen. In a marriage he'd been manipulated into accepting. His grandfather's dying wish had become his prison, and as whispers of deformed and hideous echoed in his memory, Alex steeled himself for the nightmare that awaited beneath that silk. But when the veil finally fell, the truth that emerged would shatter everything he believed about beauty, deception, and the woman who'd been watching him from the shadows for far longer than he ever knew. 3 months earlier, Alexander Chen had been untouchable. At 32, he'd built Chen Industries into a tech empire worth billions, graced the covers of Fortune and Forbes, and earned a reputation as Manhattan's most eligible bachelor. Women threw themselves at him at every charity gala, every business dinner, every moment he stepped into public view. He'd grown accustomed to their rehearsed laughter, their calculated touches, their eyes that saw only his wealth and status. He'd also grown tired of it. "Your grandfather is asking for you," his assistant. Maya had said that gray October morning, her voice tight with concern. "The doctors say it's time." In the sterile quiet of Mount Sinai's intensive care unit, James Chen lay diminished beneath white sheets. The patriarch who'd built their family. Fortune from nothing now reduced to shallow, breaths and failing organs. But his eyes, those sharp eyes that had negotiated 1,000 deals, still burned with purpose. "Alexander," his voice cracked like old paper. "I need you to promise me something." "Anything, grandfather." "Marry Elizabeth Morgan. Within 3 months. Promise me." Alex's blood ran cold. "Elizabeth Morgan? I don't even know." "Thomas Morgan's granddaughter. He saved my life in Korea. Took a bullet meant for me." James's fingers clutched Alex's wrist with surprising strength. "I made him a promise. That our families would unite. I'm calling in that debt, boy. Promise me, or I'll die with this shame on my conscience." What could he say? The man had given him everything, raised him after his parents died, taught him everything about business and honor and keeping your word. So Alex promised, even as dread settled in his stomach like lead. The problem started immediately. "You need to meet her first," his Aunt Margaret insisted, her face tight with something Alex couldn't read. "Before the wedding." But every meeting was mysteriously canceled. Elizabeth had a cold. Elizabeth was traveling. Elizabeth was unavailable. Meanwhile, whispers began circulating through Manhattan's social circles, each more vicious than the last. "I heard she was in a terrible accident," Veronica Ashford, a socialite Alex had dated briefly, murmured at a gallery opening, her voice dripping with false sympathy. Horrible scarring. "That's why the Morgans keep her hidden away." His business partner Richard was more direct. "Are you insane?" "My cousin saw her once at a Morgan family event. Wore a mask over half her face. This is career suicide, Alex. Your image—" "My grandfather is dead," Alex said flatly. James had passed 2 days after extracting the promise, and I keep my word. But as the wedding date approached with still no meeting, no photograph, not even a phone call with his intended bride, Alex's resentment grew into something darker. He was being played, manipulated. The Morgans were taking advantage of a dying man's guilt to trap him in a marriage to someone so unmarriageable. They had to hide her until the vows were legally binding. The night before the wedding, Alex stood in his penthouse, staring at Manhattan's glittering skyline, and made a decision. He'd go through with the ceremony. His word was his word, but this would be a marriage in name only. Papers and separate lives. He'd fulfill the letter of his promise while protecting himself from whatever fate awaited him beneath that veil. Now, standing at the altar of the Plaza Hotel's grand ballroom, Alex felt 300 pairs of eyes boring into his back. The Morgan family had spared no expense, which only deepened his suspicion. The bride before him stood perfectly still, her posture elegant despite the heavy red veil that concealed her entirely, a Chinese tradition her family had insisted upon. Father Morrison cleared his throat gently. "Alexander, you may now unveil your bride." This was it. The moment of truth. Alex reached for the veil, and as his fingers touched the silk, he felt the woman beneath it tremble, not with anticipation, with fear. That small human reaction cracked something in his chest, a tiny fissure in his armor of resentment. Whoever she was, whatever she looked like, she was afraid. He lifted the veil slowly, almost gently, and froze. The woman before him was beautiful. Not conventionally, not in the plastic, magazine cover way he'd grown accustomed to, but with a quiet radiance that took his breath away. Dark eyes met his, eyes filled with intelligence, kindness, and something that looked like relief. Her face was perfect, unmarred, with delicate features and skin that seemed to glow in the candlelight. I don't understand, Alex stammered, acutely aware that he was gaping like an idiot while 300 people watched. A small, sad smile touched her lips. I'm sorry, Elizabeth whispered, for the deception. I can explain everything, but perhaps not here? The ceremony continued in a blur. Alex spoke his vows mechanically, his mind racing. Who had spread those rumors? Why had everyone conspired to make him believe he was marrying someone disfigured? And why was this beautiful, clearly intelligent woman agreeing to marry a man who'd made no secret of his resentment? The reception was torture. Alex went through the motions, the first dance, the toasts, the obligatory mingling, while his bride remained poised and gracious beside him, deflecting personal questions with practiced ease. It wasn't until they were finally alone in the penthouse suite the hotel had prepared that he could ask the question, burning through him. Who are you really? And what the hell is going on? Elizabeth kicked off her heels with a sigh of relief and walked to the window, her wedding dress rustling softly. The rumors were my idea, she said quietly. I started them myself, actually. Had my cousin mentioned the accident at that gallery, where I knew Veronica would overhear. Made sure your business partner's cousin saw. Me wearing a theatrical mask at a family event we staged. But why? She turned to face him, and in her eyes he saw a depth of pain that made his chest ache. Because I've watched you for 3 years. Alexander Chen, I've seen you at charity events where you donated millions without hesitation. I've seen you personally mentor young entrepreneurs from underprivileged backgrounds. I've watched you visit your grandfather every single week, sitting by his bedside reading to him even when he barely recognized you. And I've also watched a parade of women treat you like a prize to be won, never seeing the man underneath the money. Alex stared at her, speechless. When our grandfather's promise came to light, I was terrified, Elizabeth continued. Not of marrying you, but of being just another beautiful face you'd eventually resent. Another woman who wanted you for your wealth and status. So I thought, what if you believed you were getting the worst possible bride? What if you married me expecting nothing, wanting nothing, ready to hate me? Then maybe, just maybe, you'd actually see me. Not my face, not my family's money, but who I really am. That's insane, Alex breathed. Probably. She smiled, a real smile this time that transformed her face. But I needed to know if the man I'd fallen in love with from a distance was real. If your kindness was genuine, and you passed every test, Alex, you could have broken your promise. Your lawyers found a dozen loopholes. But you didn't. You honored your grandfather's dying wish, even when you thought it would cost you everything. Alex crossed the room slowly, stopping just in front of her. You fell in love with me? Before we even met? Is that really so strange? Elizabeth's voice softened. You fall in love with kindness first, with integrity, with the way someone treats people when they think no one important is watching. I saw all of that in you. And what if I'd been cruel to you today? What if I'd rejected you immediately after lifting the veil? Then I would have known I was wrong about you, she said simply. And I would have let you go. This was never about trapping you, Alex. It was about finding out if the man I hoped you were actually existed. In that moment, standing in the soft glow of the city lights with this extraordinary woman who'd risked everything to see his true character, Alex felt something shift in his chest. The walls he'd built, the cynicism he'd cultivated, the certainty that genuine connection was impossible in his world, it all crumbled. I'm sorry, he said quietly, for resenting you, for assuming the worst. Don't be. Elizabeth reached up and touched his face gently. You had every reason to be angry. I hope now we can start over, really meet each other. Alex caught her hand, holding it against his cheek. Hi, he said, a genuine smile breaking across his face for the first time in months. I'm Alex. I'm probably going to mess this up a lot, but I'd really like to get to know you. Her laugh was like music. Hi, Alex, I'm Elizabeth. And I think messing up together is how the best love stories begin. Outside, Manhattan sparkled with possibility. Inside, two people who'd each been searching for something real in a world of beautiful facades finally found it in the last place they expected in a marriage that began with deception and transformed into truth. Because sometimes the greatest gift isn't finding someone perfect. It's finding someone who sees past your defenses to the goodness underneath and chooses to believe in it even when you've forgotten it yourself.